Hello everyone, so today we're going to be talking about accessibility in video games, but before I get to that, speaking of accessibility, today is the last day to get no more Caption shirts, which I will post a picture or two of right here. This is not for forever, but this is for this particular batch, so if you want to help out with bringing awareness to captions and, getting rid of the craptions on the internet, then consider buying a shirt. Different styles and different colors. So, last day to go get one. The sale ends at midnight EST. So, hello. If you did not know, I do stream on Twitch. I've been streaming since December. But before that, I've been gaming for longer. Now, mostly I did this when I was a kid. I was a gamer child. I owned many consoles, and I grew up on Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Pokemon, obviously, and there's been a couple of other games that I've tried. Well, throughout the years I was still playing Sims up until a certain point, and I was always playing Pokemon, but I didn't get into gaming again like you would see Twitch streamers do until this past December. And because it's been brought up before, computer is backwards because I don't have the room to get all the cords if it's facing the other way. So E3 just recently went by. I think it's over officially. There was a panel at E3 about accessibility in video games, and my friend James Rath was actually at that panel. And I believe there was another gamer-related conference a couple of weeks ago. My friends Chris and Sherry were actually in that conference. One had their own thing and one was on a panel. So I, want to talk about my own experience with accessibility. Now, just a disclaimer, my disabilities are deafness, and disclaimer again, I know culturally deafness is not considered one of those things, but medically yes. But anyways, and like chronic pain, stuff like that, mental health. So really, I'm just going to be talking more about, accessibility as a deaf person. I don't know anything about accessibility for blind people and ones with, how do you word this? Like disabilities involving mobility. If I'm phrasing this really weird, I likely am. Feel free to correct me down below. I just don't really know the wording, but I can link you to various people that could probably talk about that kind of stuff, but for now, for me, we're gonna talk about these things right here. So really, the one thing that I like about, let's say, Pokemon and Sims. Pokemon, it's a story and it's very straightforward. I don't need the sound in order to play the game. I can read the story. They don't even say anything out loud besides making sounds, right? And playing music. So that's easy. Sims, they just talking gibberish. Simslish? Is that what the language is called? So you don't really need to worry about that. For me, everything is text-based, and that's freaking fantastic. Now, talking about stuff that is like an action game but is more story-based, let's talk about The Last of Us, which I do have a PS4, but I haven't even played this. However, I have watched others play this from beginning to end twice, so I know what this game is, I know what it's about, and I know that there's subtitles in this game that are actually, in my opinion, I think pretty fantastic. I have not had any issue trying to follow along unless the streamer is covering part of the captions with their cam, which has occasionally happened, and it cuts off the last word. So I'm a fan of when games have the option to have captions, and games like Detroit Becoming Human, which I have not played, but I really want to. I noticed the captions in that game are really too small. And I don't know if there's an option to make that big, but that's the kind of option that we need in games like that. I have gone through the entire Walking Dead series. I have found issues kind of with those captions. I don't like captions that are in random colors. I don't like green captions. I don't like yellow or pink captions. No, we can get yellow. Yellow is one of the standards, but blue and pink and green, to me, that's why are we doing this? So for me personally, I like a yellow or a white base. Mostly white is easier for me, and with the black outline to kind of give it some contrast from the video game. I don't really like the really tiny ones where you kind of have to squint, and also it's not good for streaming because the screen on the stream on the desktop and your phone is already too small. so, you know, you just kind of, for the people that are watching the streams anyway. But one of the games that, in my opinion, has the worst captions so far is Far Cry. The third one, which I never finished because the game made me so angry. I put 5 hours into it and I was done. I'm annoyed. I don't want to play it anymore. But when I was watching and reading the captions, and my viewers noticed this as well, Far Cry 3 likes to put an essay in their captions. Oh my god, it's like watching YouTube videos on here when the YouTuber lets their viewers contribute, but the viewers have like big chunks of text. Captions do not need to be an essay. It's actually like harder to keep up with in my opinion, it's harder to keep up with. And for me, 1 or 2 lines, it's like when you're watching a TV show, right? They go 1 line, 2 lines, move on. 1, 2, move on. But on Far Cry 3, it was as if you were literally opening up a book and you see a full-fledged paragraph on the page. That's not necessarily the best way, in my opinion, and, you know, some guidelines that I read, that it's just not necessarily appropriate. Never mind the fact that the text, again, is very, very tiny, so it's just, like, a couple of things that I've seen on a YouTube thread is just having the option to not only have captions, but to make things bigger. Customize the text to the player's liking. So for example, let's bring deafblind gamers into the equation, right? They're gonna need bigger text, which is why if I'm doing a video in ASL and I have a transcript, the text is like a size 14, 15 bold, so that way they'll be able to read it better than, say, if I were to leave it at size 11, or, you know, the size of regular comments on YouTube. So for them, it would still be nice to have the size option and maybe a different color option. Maybe they want the green text or the blue text or whatever with the outline or no outline at all. But generally, from what I know and from what I read, the standard yellow, white, and border is the way to go. But yeah, so I'm trying to think of if there are any games that are made now, like within the last year, year and a half, maybe even 2 years. If there are any games that just were really bad with captions or don't have any captions at all. But you know what, actually, let's talk about Fortnite. Or video games like Fortnite, like PUBG, first-person shooter games that don't really have a story. Or to be more specific, Fortnite Battle Royale, not Save the World. Save the World has captions, not Battle Royale. I've made more in-depth videos before, but let's just do a quick overview. I like the idea of there being like some sort of accessible icons for a certain sound. So like if you're getting hit, like if you get shot at from behind, from the side, there's already some sort of like thing like for Fortnite that lets you know, hey, you're getting hit from this side. I think there's something like that in PUBG, but for me, I'm not able to really tell. Like there's just blood spatter and I can't tell. So for somebody who plays more PUBG and is more familiar with that game, let me know if they have the same thing that Fortnite does, because I can't really tell. But let's talk about like the chest. I personally cannot hear chest in Fortnite. They make really high-pitched sounds, and I can't hear high-pitched sounds. Most of them, I cannot hear them. So when I'm looking for chests, I really have to do a thorough search throughout houses and wherever else to make sure that I can find all of them. What I would really love to see is like some sort of indicator that says, hey, here's a chest. And I believe in the mobile version, they have more accessible icons, more accessible sounds or whatever that, for one, let you know that somebody is coming over, one of your enemies is coming over. That's freaking fantastic. I mean, it's not cheating, because for hearing folks, they can already hear if somebody is coming. I mean, most of the time I can hear when someone's coming, because footsteps have a deeper sound, a deeper tone to them. But if somebody else can't hear deeper tones, then that's perfect. I don't know if the mobile version has anything for chess. I have not been able to play the mobile game to find out, because it won't let me sign in. Thanks, Epic. But yeah, things like that in games I would love to have. The one thing that I did enjoy about Far Cry 3 is that if there were enemies, I could see it in a little mini-map. Except for some things, sometimes it wouldn't show me the enemies that were there. So it kind of went back and forth, and that was slightly annoying. And that's one of the reasons why I stopped playing the game, because I got tired of tigers attacking me. So yeah, those are some of the things that I can think of accessibility-wise for deaf people like me of various, degrees of hearing loss that I think would be be helpful. Those are the things I think are helpful. If you could think of anything else, let me know. If you are blind, if you have like the thing that I can't work properly, and you just have different accessibility needs, let me know in the comments what those would be. And before you go, if you haven't, consider pledging on Patreon. I just added some perks around. I wanted to make things more affordable for others, but also make them more doable for me. So I'm pretty excited about the way that I'm taking my Patreon right now, and I would love it if you're able to support and would like to, come on in, and I will see you later. Bye.